How's it going, Rim? And welcome back to the last edition of CTV Sports before Thanksgiving break. I'm Mike Walsh.
And I'm Ella Fredrickson, and here are your top stories for the week.
CSU football prepares for a trip to Air Force this weekend after suffering a crushing defeat to Wyoming.
Rams volleyball hosted its last home match of the season, celebrating its seniors and one special head coach.
And finally, out-of-pocket returns for a Thanksgiving special.
All of that and more on CTV Sports, which starts right now.
We start with what other than the highlight of the weekend, as CSU football geared up for its biggest game of the year, the border war. And that's an understatement because it seemed that the consensus around Ram Nation was simple. The football season, regardless of the pains to this point, would be a success with a Wyoming win. And from the start, it looked like that would be the case. Colorado State came ready to play with a quick 3-and-out from its defense that had the home crowd feeling electric. And to make things even better, just after that stop, star receiver Torrey Horton put on a show and made multiple defenders miss on his way to the house on the 72-yard punt return. And speaking of Horton, he was even more effective at his wideout position, corralling passes like these all night long as he totaled 8 catches for 168 yards. And yet, despite the great game from Horton and many others, the Rams just couldn't find the end zone on offense, as the only points they mustered on that side of the ball were 2 Michael Boyle field goals. And while Wyoming did have one of its worst performances of the season, the Pokes still managed to exploit some of CSU's weak spots. The Rams players and fans were hyped going into the fourth with a slim 10-7 advantage, and at about the 13-minute mark, CSU would extend its lead courtesy of that second Boyle field goal. And CSU was looking good and feeling good after stopping a crucial Wyoming drive. However, the high energy was short-lived as the Cowboys were at the right place at the right time when Torrey Horton muffed this catch of the punt that led to Wyoming running just 2 plays, with one of them being this huge throw to receiver Alex Brown for 33 yards to put Wyoming in front. But the Rams showed no quit, taking their succeeding drive well into Wyoming territory, but walking away with nothing after a missed 40-yard field goal attempt from Boyle. And in the end, Colorado State simply ran out of time. And yes, I know this was a rough ending, but when we look at the analytics, it was a different story. Once again, the box score just didn't seem to replicate the outcome. CSU was in command all over, edging the Cowboys in passing yards, first downs, and yards per play. However, the rushing game favored Wyoming despite another 100-yard outing by Avery Morrow. The Rams were also bested in the turnover margin as Torrey Horton's muffed punt in the fourth proved detrimental as it yielded that go-ahead score. But hey, the defense also could have made that stop. So when it comes to the stats, the Rams played a great game, but when we look at the actual outcome, we see poor offensive execution and some technical errors in the fourth that cost them a Wyoming upset. And what's more, a heartbreaker that came with it. Here's head coach Jay Norvell after the loss.
I think Torrey's been outstanding, and he's brokenhearted in that locker room right now. And we've gotten some good performances out of Avery. Our line's blocked well at times. We just haven't had enough consistency in execution. And so, we had our opportunity to win the game anyway, with all that being said. So, just run our time today.
We all feel the same, Coach, but we can't dwell on the past forever as CSU looks ahead to another conference foe in Air Force this coming Saturday. My hopes aren't that high, but boy would a win in the spring send Ram fans home for fall break in a joyful mood. But anyway, that's enough of football. Ella, what's new with women's basketball?
Well, Mike, the Rams were back on the wooden floor over the weekend to take on the Grizzlies of Montana in Moby Arena. Moments after tip-off, though, the green and gold looked rather sluggish, unable to get shots to drop consistently and failing to recover defensive boards. Compared to the play in the second half against BYU, it was not the normal self we got accustomed to watching. However, recovery came quickly to retain a lead and adjust in proper time. Once CSU began to open up lanes for clear pass to the hoop, layups started falling and open shooters on the outside found their groove. A significant aspect of this team early in the season has been evidently the newcomers, willing to carry much of the weight. Especially in the second half, everyone in white that set foot on the court seemed to be a factor in the total 82 points the Rams put up. Senior transfer Destiny Thurman had this to say about how deep their bench truly goes.
I mean, we have too many people on the team who can score. The starting 5 and then even the people coming off the bench, we can all hit double figures. So I feel like even on a bad shooting night, we could still have really good numbers.
24 points and 3 for 5 effort from 3 helped carry the Rams to an undefeated 2-0 start, beating Montana handily 82-58. In the first quarter, things were closer than ideal, but as you can see, once the pull-away began to materialize in the second quarter, it never stopped. CSU doubled Montana's points in the paint while also capitalizing much more on turnovers, all of which prompted a 24-point blowout. The last 3 quarters are what reassured Ram fans of this team's remarkable potential for the season. The slow start took no toll on the green and gold momentum as players like McKenna Hofschild and Sydney Meck joined Thurman in double figures. Hofschild also demonstrated her selfless nature with 11 assists on the night. And as for Meck, well, she did it all, being an asset on defense as well for 3 blocks. Up next for the Rams is another home contest in Moby, welcoming in-state opponent Western Colorado. And that's happening, well, right now. Mike, can you give us an update?
For sure, Ella, and with all due respect to Western Colorado, the Mountaineers this season just aren't that good. With 2 losses already to Texas Women's University and Angelo State, yeah, I know, but college basketball can be weird. So let's see how it's faring thus far over in Moby. CSU is currently leading 35-20 over Western Colorado, with Megan Boyd having 12 points, going 4 for 4 on 3-pointers. Just an efficient game out of her so far. We've also got McKenna Hofschild with 9 points and 4 assists thus far, obviously leading the pack with those 2 girls. Hopefully they can keep it going. But regardless of the outcome, I'm pumped to see the Rams get another non-conference test later in the week as they'll hit the road for the first time this season, traveling well down south to Starkville for a date with Mississippi State. And while we could provide you with an in-depth preview of that matchup, we'll move on to the other basketball team here on campus. Ella, did the men win by more than 20 on Friday?
Thanks, Mike, and not quite. Once again, a small school that no one's ever heard of, including residents from Louisiana themselves, gave the Rams all they could handle, hindering some of that Moby madness. Similar to the buzzer beater finish we saw just 8 days ago, the first half of this one was a lot closer than what CSU hopeful might have wished for. Now, that's not to say the Rams didn't come out hot, as they managed to go 8 for 15 from deep. But their defense was rather lackluster, never really settling in early. As a result, the Lions kept up the pace and only trailed CSU up by 2 at the break. And from what it seemed, this would be another nail-biter until the very last second, with both teams losing that quick strike spark from deep they had in the first half. Both offenses used up the shot clock more and slowed down the speed. But thanks to the Rams' growing cohesion to work as a single unit, every man Nico Medved circled in recorded an assist, 5 with multiple. Not only did the passing improve, but the Rams' ability to crash the boards allowed for more second chances that helped guide them to victory. With forever no more Roddy and the temporary absence of Isaiah Stevens, the Rams as a team must be in sync, and that's precisely what they did. 6 different players hit double digits in comparison to the Lions' 3. Even though this is a young team, the bench is deep and demonstrated its consistency. Patrick Cartier was its most obvious weapon, hitting 5 buckets while going perfect from the charity stripe, leading to a game-high 17 points. Starting guards John Tanjay and Jalen Lake also produced big numbers, with Tanjay scoring 13 and Lake having 6 assists. The Rams had a quick turnaround, though, pivoting for another potentially sneaky opponent in Weber State yesterday. And with that, Mike, did we remain undefeated on the homestand?
Indeed, we did, Ella, and in dominating fashion, winning by over 20 points. And unlike the way the first 2 games went, the Rams controlled this one for pretty much the entire 40 minutes. Colorado State led in just about every category, but notably they had 36 points in the paint compared to Weber State's 12, a stat that ultimately proved the difference in the scoreboard. CSU also passed the ball more efficiently and kept possession more effectively, with 20 assists and only 9 turnovers. And while the Wildcats did outboard the Rams ever so slightly, it didn't matter as the Rams cruised to a 3rd straight victory. It was reassuring to finally see a beatdown of a lesser opponent, and with many new members sporting the green and gold, these first few games have been crucial for the team finding a rhythm, and it couldn't be more important before a big road trip. And not just a road trip, but a busy array of contests and tournament play.
That's right, Mike. The Rams will head to Charleston, South Carolina on Thursday to duel with the Gamecocks, as well as several other programs throughout the weekend, depending on certain results. And with more on the Shriners Charleston Classic, we turn it over to Greg James. Greg?
Thanks, Ella. The Rams will finally get a taste of some serious competition when they take on a daunting SEC opponent in South Carolina. The Gamecocks are coming off an impressive win against their rival Clemson, and the story of the season for the Gamecocks has been all too familiar to CSU's, holding on to 2 narrow victories. They rely primarily on 2 forwards, most notably true freshman Gregory Jackson III. If the Rams hope to pull out the W, they must contain him inside. If that happens, CSU would play the winner of Charleston and Davidson on the other side of the bracket. It's pretty diverse, from schools in the Northeast, including Virginia Tech and Penn State, to a squad that Coach Medved is all too familiar with in Furman. But regardless of how the Rams place in the tournament, it will surely be a good tune-up for the rest of their non-conference slate going forward. Guys, back to you.
Now, I don't know about you, Mike, but this team has not seen a lot of good competition yet, and I know they're still young, so I'm worried about their lack of chemistry affecting them.
I'm worried about the fact that we've played bad teams and we're not winning them by as much as we should.
No,
it's kind of
absolutely.
scaring me when we're going to play against good teams and what the results are going to be for those.
To see some of these games come down to the wire is really, really scary to go and face good opponents this early in the season.
Like, I know it was a game winner that Isaiah Rivera had, but it shouldn't have been that close
A game winner is always fun. Yeah, exactly. Maybe later in the season in conference play, we'd love to see another game winner, but not
against
this
a good
early.
team, not against a bad team like
early.
that.
Yeah. When we come back, a recap of CSU volleyball's win over Air Force as Coach Tom Hilbert says farewell to the university.
Plus, we'll break down the highlights from a very busy signing period in Colorado State athletics. All of that and more right here on CTV Sports.